Tres, dos, uno.
Do they know what that means?
Listo.
Listos.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Oh,
Feliz Navidad.
oh my gosh.
Feliz Navidad.
It will be Christmas when this is out.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everyone enjoys their holidays with family and spreads the Christmas cheer by singing loud for all to hear.
What a great elf reference.
Yeah. People need to sing more.
Mhm.
I need to sing
You
more.
sing a lot.
I didn't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm joining School of Rock.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Late news.
I'm
Old news.
old news. Tuesday's my first lesson.
I love that.
I'm so excited. I'm going to be in a band. I'm going to be in a band. Okay. Podcast is
A
going.
lot of energy
Let's
today.
go. We took
A little break.
took a little break. This is the second podcast, not the second podcast, but this is part 2 of the nutrition series, part 2 of 3. We're going to be talking about myths, cholesterol, salt, fad diets,
Low carb, fat.
low carb,
fat. Low fat, low carb.
grains.
Mm.
Are grains healthy like the American Heart Association says they are?
Lies. I'm just kidding.
Lies. Everything is a lie.
What is it? Something about you live on a mountain, a throne of lies.
You live on a throne. Is that Step Brothers? I don't know.
I'm a bad movie quoter, so I don't know.
I have no idea what
Okay,
you're talking
great.
about. That sounds right though. Yeah, so we're going to talk about all those things. I want to kind of go back to where I was in the last part of the first podcast. We were talking about how some foods cause inflammation, and I think it's important to emphasize that we all need to do our own experimentation with foods and notice how certain foods, excuse me, certain foods, how certain foods affect us. Like, and it's almost instantaneous sometimes if we just pay attention. For example, I was at a Thanksgiving Friendsgiving, and we were all having a good time, just watching some football. I noticed one of my friends specifically because I've had this conversation with him multiple times, but he doesn't do anything about it.
Roast him.
Yeah, so I should call him out, but I'm not going to. He didn't have allergies, or he didn't need to take any allergy medications. He was feeling fine. He had Thanksgiving dinner, and then he had some dessert. Literally 5 minutes after, he started complaining about his allergies, acting up, and I don't know this for a fact. I just have a hunch, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct.
Those hunches.
But
He's speaking.
they do. They do. I mean, I think it was the dessert. I think the dessert, I mean, obviously there's a lot of sugar, and it definitely has different effects for different people, but it causes inflammation, without a doubt. And so when your body's inflamed like that, everything acts as an irritant to the system, and so that's why your allergies act up. That's why when I reduced my inflammation through the intermittent fasting and taking care and just really noticing what I'm eating, I was able to get rid of my allergies. I don't have allergies anymore. You hear that?
Fresh breath.
Yeah, it feels really good to breathe through your nose. And then I put some tape on my. Oh, I'm not going to say that.
I can speak to that though right now. Like there are things that if I choose to eat them, I know that in a couple minutes I will be stopped up. And I've never had allergies. I don't have allergies. But there are things that I eat that I immediately feel like a reaction to. I mean, sometimes I still choose to eat them, but I just have to go in knowing that that's the cause and effect of choosing to eat a food or to not eat a food.
Yeah. And I mean, there's we just implore you to be aware and like to notice things like that and to do your own experimentation. Um, one variable at a time. Sometimes I like to do 90.
I'm glad you're saying that. That's hard and fast is the way you live life.
I do it all at the same time, and
We got to talk through it to see which one it is.
right, it could be many different factors. So one at a time.
Okay, so first myth.
First
What about-
myth. Yeah,
what about
back to myth.
cholesterol?
Sorry, we're just having a good time in this second podcast. There needs to be some ventilation.
Yeah, some airflow.
Myth. Cholesterol. So, what is the myth, Lexi?
That cholesterol gives you heart disease, that your arteries can get clogged, you can have a heart attack. You need to have low fat, minimal fat in your diet so that your arteries aren't clogged and that you need to have
ingesting cholesterol.
right. Yeah. So the goal is always low cholesterol if you talk to a doctor and they do your, blood panels and all that kind of stuff. But we are going to tell you that might just be a myth that we need to bust. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun,
Just
dun.
kidding.
And just to put this out there, we're not the first ones to bust this myth. It's been busted for a long time, but a lot of people are not aware of it and or refuse to believe it for whatever reason because they hold on to outdated science that's been around for 20 years. Think about this. The doctors that you're seeing, they were in school like 30 years ago. When they were studying all this stuff, that's the information they had. So they don't know any better. And they're not spending time going through, they don't have time to go through this new information. Like, so when this new information comes out, it's not like instantaneous when they find out about it. It takes years and years for them to find out about it. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we implore you to do your own, take responsibility and do your own research as well. So there's that. Cholesterol. So why is that not true?
Ooh.
Just
so
straight to it, yeah.
So cholesterol, so we know that there's two different versions, well, two main different versions that we like to say one's good and one's bad. And depending on what kind of fats we eat, okay, we're going to increase our saturated fat or trans fat or triglycerides or all that kind of stuff. When you go get tested at the doctor and they take a blood panel, all of those numbers are the things that they show you.
Mm-hmm.
So we want high HDL and low LDL. And those, get accumulated through different foods,
And
different
triglycerides.
and low triglycerides. Those are hard words to say. And so we are challenging that in the way of like that's, I mean, while yes, you don't, nobody wants heart disease, nobody wants clogged arteries, all that kind of stuff, but the way to eliminate that, we're trying to challenge the way we think about that and how we eat to influence that. So in one of the books that we are going to read a couple things from, there's actually no correlation between dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol levels. So it is proven that in our brain cells actually need cholesterol to function. They need cholesterol to, metabolize waste. They need cholesterol to communicate with each other. They need cholesterol to fire along like the synapse and the nerve pathways. And when there is lack of fat or lack of cholesterol, things are not
Communicating effectively.
Yeah, communicating effectively. And so when we deprive our bodies of fat, of cholesterol, we're basically dehydrating our bodies, not in like a hydration way, but in our body's ability to communicate cell by cell or organ by organ or things like that. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so the notion that like you shouldn't eat a lot of eggs because it's gonna build up cholesterol and it's gonna cause you to get arthrosclerosis, which is the hardening and the tightening of the vein or the arteries is completely false. I mean, it's been debunked for a long time. They did a study with elderly residents. It's called Framingham residents who ate them, and they proved that those that ate the most cholesterol, saturated fat, and total calories. Wow, look at that, total calories. Actually weighed the least and were the most physically active. There's another study that showed that the residents with the highest cholesterol levels actually lived the longest. And you can find all of this in the Primal Blueprint, Paleo Cure, Carnivore Code, and Primal Fat Burner, which we will link in the show notes. Love saying that. Never gets old. And so cholesterol is needed for our like every one of our cells to function well. If we don't get it through our diet, our liver still pumps out cholesterol whether we intake it or not, because it's so critical. And so if we're not ingesting it, we're taking it from other sources, which is robbing us of energy, of energy that could be used in other situations. And so do you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, and so that brings me to the thought that people have of like, okay, well, if you're telling me that I need to eat more fat to have a healthier body, better communication within my cells, all that kind of stuff, that kind of leads us to maybe the next myth or something that we want to talk about as far as carbs and sugar. If you already have a diet high in carbs and sugar, and then you add fat, like increase that on top of those things, absolutely. You probably will have adverse effects and narrowing of pathways and all this kind of stuff that's not good, which is usually the American diet and the American problem. And so, but what we're saying is that by limiting your carbs and sugar, because your body doesn't really need as much as we think it needs or as much as there is in the normal, like convenience food, processed food, all that kind of stuff. We're basically suggesting that you trade it out for more fat, a higher fat diet, so that there's less inflammation in your body, because most inflammation comes from sugar, from processed carbs, whole grains, all that kind of stuff. There's also, I don't really know the exact thing, but there's also research out there that suggests like they're tying high fat diets with cures for like Alzheimer's and autism and all these brain kind of illnesses or diseases, because the brain actually needs those fats to continue to survive and be healthy. Like Brooks just read about the nursing home. Is that what it was? Mm-hmm. Yeah, nursing home. These are elderly people, and they, are said to maybe decline neurologically, but the higher their diet is in fat, the healthier they are, and they're not overweight, and they're not unfit, rather the opposite. And so as we move in towards the conversation about carbs and sugar, all that kind of stuff, I think the biggest thing I hear from clients is the question of like, well, doesn't my brain need carbs to survive or need carbs to fire? And while that is true, like every macronutrient is important, an excess of it is bad for the body. It's bad for the brain, and the body gets too saturated with that. That's why we have problems like diabetes and insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome and all these things, because the body's getting too much of that one substance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You want to say something? Okay.
You're doing good.
As far as the sugar and carbs and all that kind of stuff, it's fast energy. It's what we would consider fast energy within the body. The way the body processes sugars and carbs is fast and quick. And so if you need fast energy, it's going to be good for you to have a piece of fruit or a little dollop of honey or something of that sort, that sugar gets in your bloodstream and you get what's called an insulin spike. When you have that insulin spike, you're able to use that energy quickly. On the opposite side of the spectrum, protein and fat, it takes a little bit longer for the body to break those things down. So when it takes longer to break those things down, until you have adjusted your body to derive its energy from the proteins and fats that you consume, you will feel sluggish. So if you hear anybody doing like ketosis for the first time and it's just a fad diet, they go through what's called the keto flu, because they're withdrawing they're withdrawing from all the carbs, sugars, all that kind of stuff, and they do feel sick because their body is used to getting energy from carbs and sugar, which is hard and fast, versus the slow process of breaking down lipids, fats, and proteins. You also need the protein and the fat, though, for long-term ability. So if you have too low a fat, that disrupts hormone production, it disrupts communication, it disrupts all of those kind of things. And then we all know in some form or fashion that protein builds muscle. The more lean body mass you have, the leaner you naturally are, because it takes energy to break down the protein. That's what heats our body, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I answered a question or if I was just talking.
You're just going off. Preach.
Yeah.
Preach.
So to kind of review, we do believe that higher fat diets are better for the body. We believe that, and this is not just beliefs, this is also research, but we believe that like carbs and sugar, too much of carbs and sugar creates inflammation in the body. And
why does it, and a lot of the reason it does that is because, one, a lot of the carbs that we're ingesting are really bad for our gut. So gluten causes leaky gut. It causes, gluten actually binds, it's an anti-nutrient, so it binds to other nutrients and doesn't allow absorption of other nutrients that we actually need. And whether you have a gluten sensitivity or not, there is a thing called, oh my gosh, what is it called? It's where you might not have a severe reaction, but everyone is partly reactive to gluten, whether it's a big reaction or not.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that everybody has some sort of like sensitivity, even if someone's not gluten-free or has to be gluten-free.
Right. And so if you've had dinner with me, you know that I try to eat gluten-free as much as possible, and they wonder like, what you like, and I'll have gluten like bread every once in a while, just because it's impossible not to. I mean, it is possible, but
inconvenient.
It's inconvenient, and I'm just, sometimes you just want to let go, and so I'll do it. But for the most part, I try to eat gluten-free, and that's because whether you have a reaction or not, there's probably something in there that's going on that's affecting you in a negative way. Back to the ingesting carbs thing. I think insulin plays a crucial role here. Anytime we activate insulin into our bloodstream by eating carbs, that produces, those insulin molecules have to connect to a receptor on the cell. When we're ingesting too many carbs and we're producing a lot of insulin to get those carbs into the cells, we become insulin resistant, and so the insulin does not work as well. When we eat a fat-based diet, and we have really low amount of carb intake, the insulin works tremendous, like so much better. And so any carbs that we have in our system, or maybe we're in ketosis and we're breaking down some kind of fat molecule or whatever it is to make glucose, because that's what happens if we're low on glucose. I think it's called lipogenolysis. Will create glucose. And so when that happens, it's important for insulin to be extremely effective at getting glucose into the cell. And so if you're insulin sensitive, that helps. You're so much more effective at that process. And this is getting into the weeds and all that, but I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Where was I going to go with that?
So, well, we hit on the high fat. We hit on the high fat, why we don't need as many carbs as we're told we do. What about salt? Or, okay, so let's actually, before we move on to salt, let's tackle sports and carbs. There are a lot of diets and apps and schools of thought,
Schools of thought.
that talk about how you really need, carbs to perform at a high level, and that's actually just not 100% true. So when you so say someone's a sprinter, okay, for them to get that heart, like that fast energy, it would be beneficial for them to have some carbs to utilize quickly.
Or a soccer player that's sprinting
Right.
often
Yeah.
throughout the
So there are times and times that you want carbs.
You're right. Trust yourself.
But not all the time. When you overly saturate your body, exactly what Brooks was saying, the body doesn't know how to clean out and use what you're ingesting. Versus if you have a predominantly fat diet, protein diet, but you use those carbs at a specific time before you perform or before you're going on a bike ride or a run or something like that, your body now is targeted. It's like, okay, I've been given this, now I know how to immediately use it, versus just being given it all the time. And it's like, I don't really know when to use that, so I'm going to use what I can and then I'm going to store the rest. So when people do low carb diets, it's because they're trying to rid themselves of the puffiness, when really if they just limited some carbs, they wouldn't have to go on an extreme like diet binge, essentially. And anytime we use the word diet, we are trying to talk about a lifestyle, not like a fad diet.
Yeah, and on that point, I'm going to go back to some of the ways that the ketogenic diet helps support your sports and fitness goals. So there's a list of things from the primal fat burner that I just think this is really important. So we started on cholesterol, but there's also a myth that you need carbs. This is the second myth we're talking about. You need carbs to support a very physically active lifestyle. First, it will take a minute to get used to, because I mean you've been eating a lot of carbs your entire life, and it's going to take a minute for your body to get used to it. But eventually, 21 days, maybe more for some, your body will adjust and it will operate efficiently. And once it does, you're going to feel better and you're going to be performing better. You're going to recover quicker. Some of the examples include: it will spare your lean tissue mass by sparing protein from being converted to glucose and used for fuel in hypoglycemic states. So you are less apt to use your muscle, including your heart and bones, for fuel while you sleep. And on that, your heart actually uses ketones for fuel.
That is so cool.
I know. Isn't that cool? Isn't that sweet?
So sweet.
It's so sweet. Help spare your body's protein from oxidation, so you get to keep all the muscle you've worked so hard for, instead of wastefully burning it for energy. Improve your efficiency for protein utilization, so you need less to gain and keep more muscle and recover faster. I can read the rest of these, but you get the point, I think. Lower systemic inflammation, so you're less prone to pain and excessive downtime or recovery time. So when you're efficiently using fat as fuel, your body knows what to do with the energy. Everything's efficient. It's being sent. Maybe you eat, a strawberry. It gets sent to the right places, but you don't really need the carbs. Everything gets more efficiently distributed, communicates more efficiently, and works better.
What was it? As far as the carb,
it's so hot in this room.
it is.
We must be going off.
We are. more carbon dioxide through our speaking. Okay, gross. Our carbs that we. Dadgummit, what was I gonna say? I don't remember.
I'm gonna go back to so there's a guy that we both love. His name is Ben Greenfield.
He's so weird. I love it.
Yeah, he's great. But he's ran Ironmans, ultramarathons. He's been a bodybuilder. He's done it all. He's currently a nutrition guru. Has a book called Body Hacker. Has a book called Boundless. We'll put that in the show notes. But he talks about this all the time on his podcast, which is called the Ben Greenfield Podcast. But when he runs Ironmans, his pre-event diet is not carb loading, a bunch of carbs. One, he's already fat adjusted, so he doesn't. I mean, so don't automatically jump into this. You need to work with a professional and take your time and adjust to it. But his pre-event diet for an Ironman consists of, get ready for this, half a stick of butter, 2 shots of MCT oil, which is like kind of like coconut oil, but different. It's like I don't want to say refined. It's like it's a specific lipid, I feel like. But it's a part of coconut oil. Right. It's a part of coconut oil. It's a very fine and detailed part of coconut oil that provides very quick and sustained energy. And then a cup of coffee. So half a stick of butter, 2 shots of MCT oil, and a cup of coffee. And that's his pre-event diet for a Ironman, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you thought of what you needed to say, but I just thought that was really cool.
That is very cool.
Because he's one of the top guys going.
So another thing too is that we keep talking about inflammation, but if you are an athlete or a person that is just like recreationally active, if you get like sore easy or your joints get stiff or they get achy or whatever, you probably need to add more fat to your diet. Fat is what lubricates all of those joint like fluids and repair in those muscles and joint connections. So also it's really good for like your skin. So if you're trying to prevent like aging or wrinkles or anything like that.
Eczema,
yeah. Just think about it. It just adds moisture and does it add moisture? That's what my mental picture is saying. Like people who have like leathery skin, I don't feel like they have a very high fat diet. You want it to be supple. You want your skin to be supple.
Yeah, but you can also use that with you could also say they're not hydrated or they're in the sun too much, which that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Get out in the sun. Yeah. Take off your sunscreen and be in the sun more.
But basically, I was just saying that, like, if you have achy joints and you have a hard time recovering, you want to add more fat. That's going to help your body get the nutrients it needs to recover faster.
All right, that's myth 2. Busted. My voice just cracked, so please make fun of me in the comments. Grains. Want to do grains?
You can do grains.
Yeah.
We'll do it together, but you can start.
We'll do it together. So grains. Yeah, this is a long one. I mean, literally the American Heart Association has told us for the longest time that grains
are good.
Grains are heart healthy, and you should eat a healthy dose of grains every single day. It's good for fiber. It's good for proper nutrients. But the fact of the matter is, that's not the case. That's not the case. They did Dr. Weston A. Price has a book, and I'm not sure what it's called. I'll link it in the show notes.
You love that.
That's just my default. That's my lifesaver? My
motto. No.
It's my motto. No, it's I don't know what it is. Dr. Weston A. Price did a study, and he researched all of the indigenous populations that had not incorporated grains into their diet. What he found was that their teeth were absolutely perfect. They didn't need braces. They didn't need orthodontics. Their health metrics were phenomenal. Um, without any of our modern health or modern hospitals or medical system, they were perfectly healthy um, without all that. I mean, and the biggest thing that they found was that the grains made a huge difference in their health and what was causing um, us to have issues with teeth and insulin spikes and all this stuff. So um, I think that this is going to be a big one to jump over, but I think it's important for people to realize that there's a couple reasons why grains aren't good for you. One, they have a protein called gluten in them, which we talked about earlier, that is harmful to all of us. While grain is so freaking good, so it tastes so good. I mean, bread, bagels, ugh,
I love bagels.
but it causes issues.
Mm.
It causes issues because it's an anti-nutrient. It latches on to other nutrients, and we don't get the nutrients we need. When our body has all the vitamins and minerals and macros that we need to function well, we're gonna be primed up and ready to roll, ready to rock and roll, baby. Um, but grain doesn't allow us to do that. There are nutrients in grain, but it's less bio available than um, obviously vegetables. We can get all the nutrients that we want from vegetables. Um, grain is grain is an anti-nutrient, so we don't even get the nutrients out of grain that it claims that it does. And why the American Heart Association has told us this for the longest time. I'm just going to come out and say it. Should I?
Go ahead.
They're probably incentivized.
We're gonna get shut down.
We are. They're coming for us. I'm going to move to Costa Rica and never come back.
The jungle.
In the jungle. I'm already a jungle man. I was walking around shirtless today. It was 50 degrees. It was raining, and I was walking around shirtless today in my neighborhood. People were just thinking I'm crazy, but
Yeah.
I love it. It felt good.
You are.
It felt real good. I was hanging from a tree limb doing my hangs.
Even in the plate or the food pyramid that they used to do, or the My Plate now, the carbs, they want you to have 50% of carbs of your diet.
Mm.
That's ridiculous. And 20% of fat.
Yeah, this goes back to our first podcast where we talked about how, what are the results? Look at how many people have diabetes and heart disease and all this stuff, and look at how much money they're making. Just the medical industry as a whole, the orthodontists, I'm not saying they're terrible people.
We both had braces.
I had braces. I have a
Yeah.
retainer in right now, and
Me
I'm
too.
very grateful for that. But I'm just saying, imagine how much money you would save if we had the correct information about health, about diet. So that was
That's good.
long, but that was myth number 3. Grains. Myth number 4. Salt.
Salt.
I don't really have much to say about salt. I think that we're
It's
pretty.
good for you.
It's good for you. It actually. So where was that quote? I think it's in the Paleo Cure. It actually doesn't cause. I mean, it does cause a temporary increase in blood pressure, but for the most part, we are very deficient in salt and other minerals, and so that's why.
Yeah, it's all the other things that create the blood pressure that
And-
we think is salt.
Right. So early studies suggested that sodium raises. Hold on. All right, here we go. Now this one. Early studies suggested that sodium raises blood pressure, but later studies have shown that this is true in only a small group of people, known as sodium hyperresponders. for the most part, we are deficient in sodium. We are deficient in lots of magnesium, specifically magnesium. I will link this in the show notes as well. I need to remember all these things I'm linking.
I help you.
But magnesium can really dramatically help with sleep. So if you have sleep issues, I have this great magnesium product. I wish I had a code for you. One day we'll get a code, Brooks 51. There you go.
They're gonna type that in and be like, "He screwed me. I didn't get it."
Yeah, don't come suing me. Don't come for me. Magnesium is great for you, but we're deficient in it, and we're not. It's because we've been led to believe that it's not good for us, and it'll raise our blood pressure, and it's gonna, cause us to have heart attacks or whatever it is. And
what are some good salts people can add to their diet?
Himalayan. Oh, there's another one. It's actually black salt. Yeah, I forgot what it's called. Himalayan salt has like over 63 minerals with it, which is just so much better than what the regular table salt is. And then there's also, my favorite brand is called Real Salt. Real, Real. It's from the Utah mountains, somewhere over there, which is cool because it's
Legit.
American. Even though, I won't get into that. So Real Salt, Himalayan salt, all great for you. Load it up. I literally, especially if you're on the ketogenic diet, load it up. I pretty much dump a whole thing of salt on my food, and it's great, and it's wonderful.
Are you salty?
Yeah, I am salty actually. Like when I go see my dog, he'll start licking me for like hours, and I'm like, dude, I don't taste that good.
You are literally salty.
I'm literally salty. It's seeping through my pores.
I love it.
Guys, I've been on I just love the ketogenic diet. It feels good. Like you're satiated quicker. You eat like quality. You feel like you're eating like a substantial. What's the word? It's like I'm eating substance. Like there's something going into my
There's depth to it.
depth.
Rich.
I'm being filled with the correct nutrients that my body needs. And we'll get into like other diets. We should go into diets, like why it's not sustainable.
It's the next one.
Next one?
Right? Yeah.
But like fad diets and why.
Yeah, that's the next one.
That's the next one?
Yeah. That's part 3.
Wait.
They gotta be left hanging.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. That was part 2. Thank you for. Do you have any final statements?
No. Thanks for listening. Like, share.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Chrysler.
Merry Chrysler.
Yeah. Y'all have a good one. Talk to you later. Subscribe.
Bye.